in the wonderful world of making connections, like Dorothy Bean, like Bryce Martin, like Bridget Berlin, who was a very cute, very elite group who were perfectly okay in front and in back, which is the exception that proves the rule. There really were different universes. Upstairs was a different universe, and nobody talked about the disco, which was only available, there was a little room upstairs, only accessible if you were already in Max's. And the front or the back didn't matter. It was a staircase. And Jane County, then Wayne County, was the DJ, and he was the first of the great rock and roll DJs. Great, he was great. He did not play disco, but you danced. And the closing song every night was Give Me Shelter. To this day, the greatest thing ever recorded in the history of the world. And when you heard, you know, the ominous opening of Give Me Shelter, you know it was the last dance upstairs. And then, just bedraggled or sweaty or worked out, whatever, you returned to your, whatever group you started at on the first floor. And it could have been a backroom group of trannies or a front room group of abstract expressionists, heterosexual alcoholics, whatever, that you would have danced your ass off upstairs a little. That was incorporated into the performing space of the bathroom, right? Am I right? So it stopped existing, but, you know, Jane, when he was Wayne, here's that. That's about it. I don't, no sexuality, no sex in the bathrooms, please. And the sex in the telephone booths, when I think of the geography of the telephone booths, I think that's apocryphal. But we like to say it then that Eric Emerson got 8 blowjobs in the telephone booths tonight. Why not? I don't see how you could have done it. But let it be thought. It was in everyone's mind, and after closing time, all the sex came true. Okay.
So, Lenny, you talk.
Lenny is good on that subject too. He's really
you mentioned the 2 different eras of music at Max's, and I'd love to hear you say more about how they were different and what the different kinds of bands were.
Well, the real difference is that for the second era, there was a true New York scene happening. For the first era, which was again a lot of national touring bands, probably only the New York Dolls, and very much toward the end with Patty we shared a bill with television, but most of those bands were playing at a small club that was starting its own kind of creative locus called CBGB's. But around that time, Mickey lost Max's from, I believe he went bankrupt or lost it in gambling. Well, he moved. And it was taken over by Tommy Dean, who initially tried to have a disco there in the Studio 54 mold and wasn't too successful, and then hired Peter Crowley to see if he could get the upstairs happening. And Peter saw the excitement that was being generated down on Bleecker and Bowery and thought, well, we could hire all those same bands. And so you had a kind of north and south pole of places where this New York scene that was happening in the middle 1970s could play. And really there wasn't a whole lot of difference. Perhaps Max's had a little bit more of a little more rock tinge. But there was a lot of movement in between. I remember many a night going to CBGB's and seeing some of my friends on stage, and then walking uptown and seeing some more of my friends on stage. I can't stress how important having a place to play is for any musical scene, and not just for the musicians, for the people who come to see them, for the people who hear about it and come and hang out and be a part of whatever's gestating. It was a really great time in New York rock and roll, and I'm not a nostalgist, so I don't think that it's never going to happen again, because I think if you go out to Brooklyn or a lot of places like that, people are making music and you have to find it. But because it was so central and because it was so compressed, you had a lot of bands forming, impregnating each other, making records, really just, you know, a great little moment in time. And you know, aside from the bands that we all remember, you know, the major bands, you know, there was a whole horde of 100, 200 other bands, all part and adding their energy to it. My favorites, of course, at least in terms of Max's, was the monthly rent parties that Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers used to have. Just showing up, and their friends would get on stage and Johnny would play all the great songs. When I think of Max's, I really do think of Johnny. It just, you know, makes me, you know, because I remember his heart, and he had a huge heart and loved rock and roll, and so, you know, this one's for you, Johnny.
We're soon running out of time, and yes, yeah.
I've been wanting to ask Anton this question for a while. One thing we haven't mentioned much is that Max's was really a locus of a kind of street fashion where people were dressing up, coming up with fashion ideas, showing each other those things. And Anton photographed a lot of that. He really looked at that. A lot of that is in the book. I just wanted you to talk a bit about that. What was it like?
Well, when I came to Max's, especially to the back room, I really loved it. What people were wearing. It was really, I think, very much punk look, punk fashion was really around Max's. Because there were designers there like Haruko and Larissa and other people. Tiger Morris was really a great designer. She was there every night. And the greatest of them all, Charles James, was there. I have pictures of him at the back room. He was really inspired in his old age by young punk designers. And I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was, how interesting, how revealing. So I shot those people every night. I shot those pictures every night. I loved it so much. But Max's changed everything in America, I think. Max's had like red tablecloth on every table. And to me, I call it like a red tablecloth revolution. And I think Max's changed. People who went to Max's, poets, writers, photographers, painters, musicians, they changed America. America is different today because of Max's.
I just want to say something. Can I say something? I have to say something because they're making a movie about me. And it's important. And I want to say something about a group of people called the Coquettes, who, alas, because of the exigencies of art world deadlines, a little short-shrifted in this book that is otherwise so beautiful. They do have names. Even the vile, pristine condition who once gets named, sitting next to me, elsewhere gets misnamed. And as Lenny and I know, Fayette, who was Fayette Hauser, who was very much alive and wonderful, is in the book unidentified. And so if you all buy this book, there will be a second edition. So you all have to buy this book to serve God, so that there will be...
When we were writing the captions, he wasn't talking to us.
Well, England and America are talking to each other about everything, but they've got to be talking to each other about something. You know, there's always a lot of things people aren't talking to each other about. On the other hand, okay, think of, you know, Russia. What if we couldn't talk to them at all? You know, so, yes, you could have asked me who the Coquettes were. The Coquettes also, it's a metaphor, because they were in San Francisco, a celebrated and revolutionary and gorgeous LSD. Got a bunch of guys, many of whom had beards and sprinkles, and were gorgeous and stylish and magnificent, and they were brought to New York. The first night was the most hyped. I was the press agent, the most hyped event in the history of my life. There was Diana Vreeland begging for tickets through some idea, and everyone was there. And they brought two shows with them. They did the terrible one that's set in a small town with a good humor truck as the set. I'm not kidding. And Taylor Mead who was very, I can't believe he's not here tonight. He sure wasn't carried in somewhere. TaylorMade stood up and challenged the people on the stage in the middle of the show to go home because you suck, and named at that point all the great theater companies and theater work being done in New York by Charles Ludlam and John Carroll and many, many more, and Jack Smith. And what right have you to take up the stage at 2nd Avenue and 4th Street? And the audience just walked out. This great evening collapsed. This great opening night where Truman Capote had been fighting for a ticket, okay? They all got dressed up, and they all, Goldie Glitters, who was not identified in the book, except as a coquette, wore a toilet seat, and very beautiful wig and a gown. And they all walked into Max's. Shh. I don't know how to control this. Did you ever hear butt dialing, where when you wiggle, it does something? Yes, I don't know what to do. Anyhow, okay, they all walked in at once because they knew that they had just been killed and disked and decimated, mortified, and chopped into pieces by all of New York, led by TaylorMade and Diana Green and Andy Warhol, and everyone stomping out. But they came to Max's as a group, and when they walked into the back room, we all stood up and gave them an opening night cheer, like you would at Sardi's for My Fair Lady or something for the first night, okay, Oklahoma. So, to them, our apologies. And so buy this book, and so there'll be a second edition, and they can print my interview with Mickey on white paper so you can read it. And if anyone wants the whole thing and you're cute, give me your email address and I will send you the even unedited version. I'm sorry for doing that. I had to do that. They're making a movie about my life.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
So for the final 10 minutes, we're going to turn it over to the audience for Q&A. Now, Q&As are notoriously awful because people hog the airtime and all of that. So please make your questions short and say who you are directing them to.
I've got a question for Danny Fields, if I may.
Yes.
The character Pristine Condition, was that a real name?
Well, you know, Christine was the worst of the cockheads. Seated next to me on a 2-page spread, which I have a drool-covered, greasy T-shirt, which, thank God, Stephen airbrushed for the show that's on 23rd Street, so it's all like it's just gray, thank God. And Pristine Condition was the worst of the cockheads, but moved in with me and made me clean when a reporter was coming from. That's who that is. That's what you're asking, because it's Pristine Condition, Danny Fields on the 2-page spread. That, yes, that. And look at the schmutz on my collar. I don't know how you could put that in a book without asking or leave yourself over reliable. It's not sweat, it's drool. I don't know. It's really embarrassing. But if you go to 23rd Street, Stephen has fixed it. He's an angel. Whatever. Okay. And that's who Pristine is. I don't know his real name. He's no longer with us. He was a guy from Texas, I think, who had a lot of money because his mother was murdered, or is that another guy from Texas? I don't know. That's who he was. He was
good looking.
Not a cool person. And that's me being asked what I think of music, or what I think of these being played. Excuse
Who's
me.
next? Okay.
Having never been there, and you opened with the menu, how was the food? That's to anybody who wants to answer.
No one ever ate, except if you brought someone and they wanted a steak, and you could charge it to sign Fatty Arbuckle on the charge thing, and have them accept it. Then someone from out of town, like John Sinclair or something, would eat. But nobody ever ate there. I don't know.